Welcome back. I'm Kane Burke, a member of the platform marketing team here at Salesforce, and I'm continuing my conversation with Jonathan Bruce as we talk about Field Audit Trail. Jonathan, let's pick up by going into a bit more detail of Field Audit Trail. How does the product work from a technical perspective?
Field Audit Trail offers two key things. It gives you the ability to track fields, up to 60 fields per object, which gives us a lot more capability to track field changes across your organization. So that limit applies across all objects. Not only that, we now have the ability for you to retain that data for up to 10 years. Second, we offer the capability of allowing you to define specific field history retention policies on a per object basis. And as we talked about earlier, that's a very important thing because there's different value to data retention for field audit data depending on that object. So imagine you're a bank. When you're a bank, you're operating under the rules and regulations of FINRA. But you're also interacting with your customers all the time. So if you're a bank, you're doing a lot of loans, and imagine you have a custom object called loan origination. And with a loan originating object, that contains all your financial data. So that means you've got to keep your field history and your audit data for up to 7 years. However, as you're interacting with a customer via your case object, you have an internal requirement to keep your interaction data for up to 10 years. The Field Audit Trail, like we spoke about earlier, we have now the capability of defining a retention policy specifically for case object up to 10 years and for the loan originating data for up to 7 years.
That's interesting. It sounds like this would also be something that would be useful in other industries like healthcare.
Correct. For HIPAA, their compliance requirements stipulate data retention requirements. And what that really means is not only how long you want to keep the data, it's actually when you should be actually getting rid of that data. So the stipulations are very concrete, and for organizations who are operating in HIPAA controlled and HIPAA regulated environments, they are now able to meet those requirements of Field Audit Trail because we are very much geared to, with the policies that you author, to make sure that you keep the data for a stipulated amount of time, and then we take care of getting rid of that data at that point.
So you've mentioned a few times this ability to retain 60 fields per object over 10 years. That sounds like a massive amount of information that we're potentially storing for each organization. How have we structured ourselves so that we're able to do that at Salesforce?
So you're absolutely right. By allowing our customers to track more fields per object, we have significantly increased the amount of data you could potentially generate. That is audit data. So where do you put it? Well, this is where our big data infrastructure comes into play. We now have the capability of storing well north of 1 billion customer records in one single object, which is what Field Audit Trail actually does. As we adhere to the policies that you deploy, we channel all that field audit history into our field history archive object, which of course is built not only to be able to store billions of records, but it's built such that we make sure we maintain accessibility to your audit data at any time. This is a real key differentiator for Field Audit Trail. As the data grows, we maintain accessibility, so any queries that you run will always return in 120 seconds or less, which means you can run synchronous queries irrespective of how you build your field history data.
As a customer, how do I actually go about configuring Field Audit Trail for my organization?
Very simple, in fact. The best thing to do is engage with your business. You need to understand exactly what the requirements are, and we built Field Audit Trail very much with that in mind. So engaging with your business, understanding what fields you should track. As we have found, field history tracking has been done in a very ad hoc manner. Having that concrete conversation with your business will really put you on the right course. Once you have an understanding of what fields you should track, an additional conversation with the business will make sure you understand what the retention requirements would be for that data. Once you have that in place, it's very simple to author a simple policy and then deploy it into our metadata API. Once it's in there, the magic happens. We take care of adhering to the contract that you define in your policy to maintain field history retention on a per object basis. So the business and you, the Salesforce administrator, will know that you're doing exactly what the business requires.
So it sounds like it's very easy to set up Field Audit Trail for most organizations. But what happens when they face an audit event of some kind? How easy is it to go into the system and ask a question?
So with Field Audit Trail, this is a key differentiator. So with typical audit and archival solutions, it's all about storing and retaining the data for a long period of time. And getting at that data is typically very, very difficult. Now with Field Audit Trail, we had an opportunity to do something different. Why? Because with our big data infrastructure, we can store and retain north of billions of customers of records. But not only that, we maintain accessibility to these records. So if you're in an audit event like you just described, and you want to ask a question, you can run a SQL query or an API call, and that data is there for you for your consumption.
Jonathan, thank you for sharing so much information today about Field Audit Trail. And I know that you've also prepared a demo for us, which we're going to go through in the next segment. Before we move on to that, if you'd like to learn more about Field Audit Trail, please talk to your account executive.